Hey everybody, welcome back. Thanks for joining me today. We are going to be patching this drywall here from cutting out this piece of drywall to get our internal hide hose vacuum install done. So if you guys want to check out that video, you can see a link in the description for this. However, today we're going to be patching this drywall, just going over exactly how to do it, just in case you guys want to do this yourself, save yourself some money, and then also it's just good to know how to do this kind of thing. So let's get into it. All right, first things first, I like to wipe the drywall when I am doing like a hole like this, because you want everything to stick nicely. So I just quickly wipe it off here, like so. Blow out any of the dust that's in there. Also, you'll notice here I had a chip, so I just pulled it out. You don't want anything loose in there. If you have something that's flaking off, just pull it right out. It'll save yourself some headache. Like here, there's a little bit of the paper. I'm just going to tear that right off because we're going to fix all of this. A little bit here also. Just going to go ahead and tear that right off there. You want to try to leave the paper if you can, but if it's flaking off already when you go to put your actual drywall on there, it is, or the compound, it's going to actually cause issues, want to flake up, and it's just not going to be as strong. So get it prepped up. So we're ready to go pretty much here. This is going to stay completely open because our door covers this nasty edge here. So let's grab our compound here and we'll mix it up. All right, so a few things that you'll need to patch your drywall hole in your wall or cuts or whatnot. You will obviously need the joint compound, which I just showed you guys. You need some kind of spatula. This is really mainly like a scraper paint spatula. It's from Purdy, but I use it for small projects like this. And then I have a tray that I keep the actual joint compound in, and then you'll want to grab yourself some tape. I have just standard tape. You can also get fiberglass tape. Fiberglass tape is supposed to be stronger. However, I found it's generally a little bit more thick. And on areas like this, where you're going to tape over these cuts, it's easier to hide the tape and build it up, especially the fact that you don't have a tapered joint. So when you run your drywall, normally on brand new drywall, hanging it, at 4 feet off the ground, you'll have a horizontal seam, but that's a tapered edge because both edges of the drywall it's hung are tapered to cover up the piece of tape and all the joint compound that's in there. This, we don't have that luxury, so I go with actual normal tape, not fiberglass tape, so that I can hide it a little bit better, and hopefully we won't be able to notice that I've patched all this. So first thing you need to do, you can set your tape off to the side. You need to, well, if you can have a banjo that gets your tape all covered in mud for you, but I don't have that luxury. So we are gonna cover all of our seams. And what I'm doing here is I am pressing the mud down into the actual seam, like so, and making sure it's all getting filled in fully. All right, and then we're also going to overlap our piece of tape an inch or two onto the good drywall here. And you can see I have a lot of extra joint compound on here, much more than I actually need. Now after you get it spread on your wall, then you can apply your tape. Now I'm going to overlap it again, like I said, an inch or two on each side. You can cut this with scissors, you can cut it with a knife, or you can tear it. It really doesn't matter. You'll also notice, if you've never bought it before, that this tape has just a small little impression right in the middle of it. You can see it wants to bend like that because it's really meant for taping corners. However, you can just leave it flat and use it the way that I'm using it today. So we're just a little bit too long there, so we're going to pull off another little bit. Make sure it's relatively square. Okay, so that's a good length. So I'm going to set that right centered over that joint that we're trying to hold together. And what we're going to do then is take our spatula and we are going to press the tape in, pressing it down in there. And then you'll notice here my spatula seems to be skipping and it's creating a line right there. So there must be something underneath that or on that edge that's hard and causing the spatula to skip. So we're going to get that out of there, because if you don't, it will create a little high spot, and then you're going to have to work harder later on to fade that out of there. And it still doesn't want to come out of there, so it's right there. Okay, so we got that out of there. We're going to add a little bit more mud underneath that piece of tape again, and we're there. Now it's nice and flat and smooth. Now, keep in mind, I've only got this one piece of tape on. We also need to add our other 4 pieces here. However, you need to make sure that you not only have joint compound underneath your piece of tape, you also have it over the top of your piece of tape. You'll notice here that I am making sure that all of the tape everywhere is wet and covered in joint compound. Then, once it's all covered like this, you can begin to try to fade your edges out. If you notice here, I'm not sure how well you guys can see it, but I do have a little bit of joint compound here from the edge of the tape over here, and I'm fading it out. Now, this first coat is really just to get your tape on. You want to do 3 coats of drywall, generally, if you know what you're doing. Sometimes if you have to do a lot of sanding in between coats, you might have to do 4. It's all right to do 4. It's the more coats, the better. The more smooth it is, the better, let's say. You don't want to ever look at it and be able to say, oh man, that looks like crap. I did a bad job fading that out. If I would have put one more coat on there, it would look perfect and you'd never be able to tell. The whole point in doing this is you don't want to be able to tell that I cut this wall open. The other thing that you need to do on your first coat here is you need to fill all your nail holes. So go around, take a little bit of joint compound, and fill your, well, I call them nail holes, but they're not actually nail holes, they're screw holes. They used to be nails. So, it used to be nails in the old days, that's why they're called nail holes. So, we're gonna get those all filled in, and then we're gonna get these other edges filled in for our next pieces of tape. You'll notice that I've got all of the cuts filled in, all of our nail holes or screw holes filled in. I'm going to put our next piece of tape on. Now, the one thing here, I've heard different people like different things. I just do what I like. I don't like to overlap it like this. That would make the joint stronger per se. However, I'm not really concerned with strength here because I know I'm on the center of my stud, as I described in our other video with the install of how to install this vacuum. So I'm not super concerned about strength. What I'm really concerned about is fading it out as far as not being able to see the tape. So if I stay on this other piece of tape and don't overlap it, it will probably be, at least in my opinion, just a little bit easier to make disappear. So I'm going to cut it to that length there. We're overlapping this seam again by 1 inch or so. We're going to press that piece of tape in there, and then we're going to get our other pieces of tape in across here, and then we're going to get joint compound over top of all the tape. All right, so I've got all the pieces of tape on here. As you can see, I've covered them all with some mud. In fact, there needs to be a little bit more mud right there, actually. And I have then taken my spatula here, and if you'll notice, these are sitting really nice and flat, because I take my spatula like this, and I run out all the extra mud underneath them, or joint compound here. And then once I do that, then I will go back and I'll add mud to those edges here, like so. And then what you want to do is you want to start fading it out to flat. Now this is a really small spatula. I do have a bigger spatula. However, when I'm just doing patches like this, the first coat, I just like to get the edges faded out just a little. So one trick to drywallers, you'll see these guys going like this, and they'll be done with this hole in 2 seconds. Now, the trick to it is, which most people don't know, well, one of the many tricks, is you take your spatula like this, and you don't just wipe like this. See, because if you wipe like this, yes, you are cleaning it up and you are fading this out. See, you can see here it's faded, the edge of the tape to here, you know, it's faded out a little bit, and it looks pretty good. However, if you throw some more mud back on here, what you can do with your spatula is, when you drag it across here, instead of just putting pressure on it, put pressure on the bottom of the spatula, right here on this bottom left corner here. And if you put pressure on that, what it does is it fades the drywall from having no mud here to starting to fade out. You'll see I didn't apply enough pressure on the top of my spatula here, because you'll see the line right there that it was no longer touching. So I just need to run it a little bit higher with a little bit less force on the bottom there and a little bit more on the top. You see there, now I have faded it even more higher, although I'm still not down in my tape, and you don't want to be. You're trying to cover up your tape. So again, you can see here I have kind of a hole. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of mud here, and I'm going to put a bunch over top of it there, and a little bit more on that side also. So we can fade this thing out across here like this. And then I've got some extra mud there, and we're going to fade it out like that. And then see here, now this line down here represents the actual edge where I'm actually touching the drywall. So now I can just take that excess out of there. Made a slight mistake. Again, I am pushing down on the bottom left of my trowel, which is making the trowel curve like this, creating that slow fade. The bigger the trowel, the slower the fade, the less you're gonna see it. However, this is the first coat, so with the first coat, that's all I'm gonna do here like this, all the way around. The second coat will grab the bigger trowel, do a little bit better job fading, and then you guys can see that. So let's finish this up, and then we'll get on to the second coat. All right, just really quick here, guys. I wanted to show you what it should look like after your first coat. Now, this obviously isn't super pretty. I don't do this for my job. I just have learned from other people who have done it for their career. And I just wanted to show you what you can maybe expect for patching drywall, how it should look after your first coat. You're not gonna get everything perfect. It is not the finished product. You still have a couple more coats to go, and you have the almighty sanding block that you get to use. So keep in mind, things like this little ridge here and like this, that's all gonna go away in the future. And before you start your second coat, you can take your sanding block and sand some of that, assuming you don't use the non-sandable Durabond. However, keep in mind, fading that edge in and out like all along here that I've done, that's really important. That's gonna make it super easy for you to do your next coat. Then you're gonna fade it out even further the next time. And we're gonna flash this whole thing out, so hopefully you won't be able to tell. Now this one's a little bit harder than the general hole, because a normal hole, you could just coat the whole thing and you wouldn't have to worry about a hole in the middle that I have to access later. So this one's a little bit difficult, but no big deal. You know, it doesn't look perfect for sure. I definitely am not gonna win any awards on this. However, I just wanted you guys to have a realistic expectation, because sometimes on YouTube you see these things and these guys do it and you're like, oh my goodness, that's way better than I can do. It looks terrible what I'm doing. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be pretty your first try. So don't expect that. If you do it right, if you get all the pieces of tape wet before everywhere, on both sides, and then you get all your compound in everywhere, on all your joints, all your cuts, all your nail holes, you're going to do all right. You just may need to add a few more coats than normal. So that's what it will look like after your first coat. Let's get back to the second coat now. Okay, so we're back here after the second coat now, and you guys can see this up close view. I just wanted you to see the different lines and a little bit how rough it is. Again, I'm not a drywaller here, no professional. However, I am starting to fan out these lines a little bit here and get these further out, and that's what makes it disappear the fact that you have cut the wall open. So just wanted to show you guys that, it's not going to look perfect, and that's okay. So once you have that second coat on, what I'm going to do here before I put my last coat, or at least hopefully my last coat, assuming everything is covered up, all these big lines I'm going to take out just so that it's easier to apply my next coat. And again, the next coat is just going to be fading out even further. And I've just got a little block sander here, 80 grit, I believe. And we're just going to take out some of these bigger lines and stuff to make the whole thing just generally more flat. And making it more flat will thus give us a better chance of putting a really nice even coat on for the last one here, and less probability of somebody seeing the fact that we cut this open or seeing the tape. So just take out the big lines first. All right, so you guys can see now I've sanded it before I'm about to put on my final coat. You can see right here the tape is just starting to show through right there, and that's okay. We are going to add more mud on top of that, so It's no worries there. We did take down all the lines, so it's really getting a lot harder to tell. Of course, you can still see some of the lines, like the lines down here, these over here, and then you've got that big one right there. That's pretty obvious. However, that will get covered by the actual cover for the vacuum that's going to go there. So not too concerned about that, but we're going to add the last coat here and try to fan it out even more and get a better finish and build up that mud so we can smooth it down nice with our sand pad and basically get everything to disappear. We're adding our last coat here. Now I want to explain something on a trowel to you guys. I've got the 10-incher out here. Every trowel, if it doesn't have the bend, you should put one in it. This trowel, if you look straight down it, has a slight bend this way. And it doesn't matter which way it bends, it just matters that it does. And what it does is, let's say it is curved up and down like this right now. When you do that and you apply the mud like this, most of the mud will accumulate here. However, you can take it and apply the mud here like this. That's going to fan that line out bigger. Then if you flip over the trowel like this, now the curve is going this direction. It makes it easier to hold that corner on the top right there, and you go like this, it will fade out that line even farther, but also slower. So if you don't have a bend in your trowel, that's one of the tricks to drywall. Just bend that trowel a little bit, giving yourself a little bit of a advantage, I guess you could say, as far as reversing and going forward and on the other side of your trowel. So just a little trick. So let's go ahead and apply this third coat. Okay guys, so there is the third coat. Looks pretty good. I think that'll be our last coat. I will have to do a little bit of sanding afterwards, obviously, to fade the drywall from the wall itself over here on the right in here to the buildup of mud and tape. Hopefully it will look like we didn't touch it, and then we'll be ready for paint after we sand it a little bit. So we'll let it harden up till tomorrow, give it a good sand, and then we'll see how it comes out. So this is what it looks like after the third coat. You can see now that the fanned out area is much larger, all the way down here, all the way up to here. Basically, we're just trying to fade everything out. So now I think everything looks really good. We just have to do a final sanding. And the way that you sand it is you start on the outside and you just give it a little bit of a sand here, just to, basically you're just trying to make the drywall look here as if it's just slowly fading from the paint to the drywall, so you don't have any hard edges. And then once we get everything smooth and faded in, we're going to hit any bad spots that the trowel left behind. Like, I'm not sure if you guys can see it too well, but there's a couple spots right here that we're going to sand. And the best way to check if you are getting the drywall flat is by using a flashlight. Now with you guys moved in a little closer, I'm sure you can see those spots. However, up here looks really, really nice, I'm sure, especially on the camera. It looks perfect. However, if you take a light and you flash the light over top of it, you can actually see, if you can see that line right there, you see every imperfection becomes drastically apparent. Like you can see all those imperfections. So that's what you want to do. You want to go over the area that you're going to sand with a light like this, because if you get it to looking good, like over here, you can see where I sanded, it looks nice and smooth. That's what you want it to look like. And then once it looks like that everywhere, that is then your finished product and you're ready to prime and then paint. So that's how you do drywall, guys. You just basically sand it till those lines get out of there, like that big line there. We're just gonna go across here and do a little sanding there like that. And there, now, see, there you go. The line is getting much less apparent right there. You can barely see it with the light. If you take the light off it, you can't see it at all. But we're just gonna give a little bit more of a sanding there so that you can't see it at all. So basically we'll do that everywhere to get rid of all the lines, and then we're ready to paint. And that's how to do drywall. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. I will see you next time.